Niavár started out around 5 years ago as a setting I wanted to write a novel about, then evolved into one I wanted to write a series of short stories and a trilogy of novels for, and has now become a world-building project standing on its own merits. I enjoy filling fantasy worlds with life, even or maybe especially those corners of the world that would never appear in any of the stories I plan on still writing one day. Because with every hole filled in, the world becomes more real and more immersive to me, more enjoyable to spend time with. Niavár is not finished and won't be for a long time. It's full of holes that I want to spend the next few years on this channel filling. But before we get into any specific aspects of the world, let me quickly introduce you to what this project is and will continue to be. Niavár is dark and epic fantasy. It's political and in many places highly religious. It's low in magic but high in mysticism and full of various myths, with some elements of eldritch and otherworldly horror. Oh, and did I mention dinosaurs? It also has dinosaurs. Welcome to the world map. It's looking pretty blank so far, but that'll change soon enough as the holes begin to get filled. For this video I want to mainly talk about that central continent right here, because it's the one I've spent the most time with. And yes, technically these two bits are one interconnected continent, but they are known under two different names, and so I will be referring to them separately. The northern half-continent is called Nooramair by the Nuran people, the dominant culture group across Nooramair's vast steppes and deserts. Let's take a look at the largest island of Nooramair's coast. This is the island of Ashok, where people of many diverse cultures and backgrounds come together to devoutly follow the ancient tomes, a huge collection of books supposedly written right after the birth of the world, that speaks of massive serpentine creatures breaking through the Earth's crust and taking their place in the sky above. The only people able to see traces of these serpents in the sky are so-called White Eyes, who are referred to as Amul Alash, the children of the serpents, and who are seen by the people of Ashok as the connecting link between the divine and humanity. This has shaped the holy nation of Ashok to become a theocracy led by the Serpent's Council, a council of white-eyed priests whose vision of the divine guide the nation's every move. Ashok is also where Niavár Teaser 3 takes place, which I'm very proud of, but which unfortunately is my least viewed video on the channel. If you want another quick glance into Ashok, I recommend watching that video, after you're done with this one of course. Moving on to Púhme, a singular metropolis surrounded by desert on all sides but one. Complex systems of waterways supply its citizens with ways to grow crops, even in their harsh environments. The city is built on the ruins of a much older city, supposedly the ancient capital of the mythical empire of Vornória, which is said to have been ruled by the gods themselves and to have seen the entire continent of Nooramair prosper for thousands of years, before it finally fell apart and the gods left, never to return. At the heart of Púhme lies its best-guarded secret, its great library, where a select number of scholars have access to an ocean of knowledge deep under the modern city of Púhme, where it once belonged to its predecessor, the capital of Vornória. Next up, Vornória. This centuries-old kingdom has seen better days. It once called itself an empire of all Nuran people of Nooramair, but it has now shrunk to a fraction of its former size. Like Púhme, Vornória is mostly surrounded by hot and arid deserts, its landscape dominated by canyons and deep river basins. The people of Vornória believe in the sun and the moons as their deities, with the fourth goddess, the creator of humankind, as a once existing third moon, which was cast down from the sky long ago. Statues and other depictions of their deities show them with humanoid bodies and drangru heads, an animal the Nuran people share a close bond with. The children of nobles are typically tasked with hatching and training their own drangru, who will then often be a lifelong companion. Let's take a quick detour away from Vornória and towards Corianh, the southern half-continent. Here we find the Corianh Wasteland, a huge part of the continent which has become completely uninhabitable through some kind of unknown catastrophe long ago. Legends tell of a slow blight that festered and spread over years, allowing people to flee their homes before it would ultimately be too late. Many people in southwestern Vornória, including Ashok being of Corianh descent, lends the legend some credence. Whatever happened, it could not have been instantaneous. Last but not least, another area that, like the Corianh Wasteland, is little more than a tale from the past. I'm talking about the Haachack Empire in the deep jungles of eastern Vornória. Here, splinter tribes all claim descent from one mythological figure they call the Ogra King. According to myth, centuries ago this Ogra King descended from the mountains to unite the eastern jungles of Vornória. He amassed an army of millions with which he carved an empire from the warring tribes of the region, subjugating any who stood in his way. With the slaves gathered throughout his conquest, he then settled down and built Tukaya, the city of 1,000 towers, and ruled from there until he died peacefully decades later, leaving his throne to his oldest child. The Ogra King's dynasty ruled for many generations, before a civil war between rival siblings tore it apart and brought the Haachack Empire down with it. Tukaya, the city of 1,000 towers, still stands today, though the jungles have long reclaimed it and it is devoid of human life. I'm going to stop here because I don't want the introduction to the setting to become too long and overwhelming. I glanced over many details for the same reason, but if you're still here, let's look at a few dinosaurs together. I promised dinosaurs after all. These, the drangru, I already showed when talking about Vornória. They are the most finished of all my dinosaur concepts. Basically big rideable and tameable raptors. Intelligent desert hunters, though some of their relatives also exist in other climate zones. These are called vero. They're most often used as a pack animal for desert caravans. They might be slow and quite stubborn, but they more than make up for that with their sturdiness and calm nature. Here we have the makwa, cute and fluffy little scavengers. They use their long second fingers and their beak to crack open eggshells and to get to the juicy bits of carcasses. Okay, so the last two aren't as fleshed out yet, just early concepts at this point. One of them's the Corianh, a sort of medium-large sized herbivore based on an old sketch. I exaggerated the features for the updated version and just made it much bigger overall. The top sketch hasn't been updated yet, but I'll put it somewhere eventually. Lastly, the Humarves, because every world with dinosaurs in it needs its T-Rex equivalent, of course. I'm not quite happy with this design yet. It just looks a little too familiar, and I'll probably experiment with it a little more. That's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this introduction to the world of Niavár. I would have loved to have more art prepared for this, but as I've said before, art takes a long time, and it would have delayed this video even more. I'll talk about each of the regions discussed in this video in future dedicated videos that I can then prepare more art for as we get to them. I hope to see you then. Bye bye.